So great news. I've booked a big name podcaster for the first guest on my new podcast. Problem? I don't have the podcast developed yet. Welcome back to Listen to Leo. In today's video, I wanted to walk through the process of starting a new podcast. And this is something I've been working on and kind of tossing around in my head. And the other day, I noticed that one of my favorite podcasters said, "Hey, I just released this course. As a result, I'm going to be going on a lot more podcasts. If you're interested, hit me up. Love to be a guest." So I was like, this actually fits in really well with what I'm wanting to create. Got an idea for a podcast, but nothing really developed. But this is really great timing. And so I went ahead and sent a DM and just said, "Hey, here's my idea. Would love for you to be a guest." And he sent back, "That sounds like a great idea. Let's do it." Okay. So now I've got a guest, but I still don't have a podcast. So this is where the idea of already having done a podcast comes into play. Something I recommend to people who are interested in doing a podcast, just do it. Doesn't matter what it's about. Doesn't matter what it's called. Doesn't matter how many listeners you get. What it does show is that you're willing to put in the work to get better. And if you show that you're willing to put in the work, people are more willing to trust you. So because I knew this podcaster, because he's one of my favorites, as I said, I knew he would appreciate a show of effort. And I just said, "Hey, this is the last podcast I did. This is the first interview I did as part of that. And here's the most recent." And so why I did that is I wanted to set up like the idea that, hey, I've put in the work. Like, look, here's my first. If you want to see how well I got, how much better I got, here's the last one. Check it out. I used that as a way to show authority because I had done the work. This is something that more and more people are going to end up finding out the hard way online. You need to show your work. And what that means is it means doing things and documenting them along the way and not worrying about what people say or if people see it or anything like that. What you want to do is you want to prove to the people that you reach out to that you're serious. I heard a great Mr. Beast quote. He was doing an interview and was talking about how he'll get these requests from people like, "Hey, how should I do my YouTube channel, man? Like, give me some tips. What should I do?" And Mr. Beast's response is, "Go do 100 videos and then come back to me." Now, kind of the story within the story here is apparently all the people who went and actually recorded 100 videos didn't really need his help anymore. The people who didn't weren't serious about it. The people who are putting in the work respect people who put in the work. And when you realize that most of the world isn't paying attention to anything you're doing at any point in time, so you can kind of just do whatever, start doing things that you want people to pay attention to down the line. Don't worry about who's looking at it now. Worry about who might want to look at it later, because it's a lot easier to document it in the moment than it is down the line. If I had to go down the line and say, "Okay, great, I've got this new idea for a podcast. I have an opportunity for a guest. I need to show my work, but I don't have any podcast episodes." What do? Record a bunch? I actually did hear a story of someone essentially recording one podcast episode, saying he had this whole idea and ended up like turning it into something. And that's actually the origin story for My First Million. I totally botched it, but check it out. Highly recommend finding that story. It's a pretty great one. But I would rather not have to do that in the moment. I'd rather just have it at hand. And so when I decided I wanted to start a podcast, I started a podcast. Did interviews with anybody who would let me interview them. And I did about 30 episodes. And in doing that, I was able to develop enough of a sense that, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing here. And that way, when new opportunities come up down the line, you are poised to actually pounce on them. And so, yeah, I would say when you're in a situation like that, you want to be able to take advantage of that opportunity and turn it into something really cool. And so now my plan is actually to start securing more guests. I have one named guest, which, is in terms of actually having a considerable audience, somebody who's actively developing his audience. And that to me is a really, really cool thing. And I can use that to hopefully tap into other people around that level, maybe even a little higher if I say, hey, because again, it's about showing the work. It's about showing who trusts you. It's about showing the effort you put in. All of this is a signal that people can use to quickly evaluate whether or not to trust you. And online, when you're trying to build new connections, trust is everything because people who have an audience, who have a presence online, get inundated with all sorts of messages. And so you have to figure out ways to stand out. And a good way to do that is to show that you actually put in the work. Anything you can do to put in the work and show people that you're willing to put in the work, that's when people end up trusting you. And that's when you can say, hey, let's work together on this. It's going to be really cool. And we'll see what we can build from here. One step at a time. And it doesn't have to be in order. I've kind of got a name for the podcast. I've got a general idea, but I haven't developed all the rest of it yet. And that's okay. I didn't need to. All I needed to do was show that I know what I'm talking about. I've done it before. And here's this idea. Take those three things and put them together, and you'll be really surprised what you can do. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.